hate you both. I've hated you ever since I can remember. I hate you, and I wish you both had cancer. Cancer? Yes, in the head.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
Are you telling me you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
This is the Stupid Cancer Show.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Hello there, children!
Hey, kids!
People seem to like me because I am polite and I'm rarely late.
Don't worry, I got an idea.
And now, the host of the Stupid Cancer Show, Matthew Zach.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Because he has a lot of chutzpah.
All right.
Hello and welcome to episode 359 of the Stupid Cancer Show, kicking off season 17. We are the voice of young adult cancer. I'm your host, Matthew Zachary, proud 19-year young adult brain cancer survivor, coming to you from the Chemo Deck, our fabulous studio in downtown Manhattan. Broadcasting since 2007, the Stupid Cancer Show is a production of Stupid Cancer, the largest charity comprehensively addressing young adult cancer online at stupidcancer.org.
I'm Kenny Kane, co-founder of Stupid Cancer, welcoming all of our first-time and returning listeners. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud.
It is not okay that 72,000 young adults are diagnosed with cancer every single year. That's one every 8 minutes. So, got cancer under 40? Sucks, huh? Time to get busy living, folks, because the Stupid Cancer Show is changing the world, one chemo infusion at a time. And tonight's show is no exception. Have some empathy. Most people struggle to find the right words when someone is facing a serious medical issue. Enter Emily McDowell, young adult survivor, creator and founder of Emily McDowell Studios, and the genius, and I do mean genius, behind the Cancer Empathy Cards. She created her own now famous empathy cards in response to the loneliness and isolation she felt when many of her close friends and family just disappeared because they didn't know what to say, what to do, or they just only were train wrecks without realizing it. Tonight in Survivor Spotlight, we're going to welcome young adult survivor and conqueror of the 7 wonders of the world, Megan Sullivan. And with that, here we go. Mallory, Kenny, Sean.
Hello.
Welcome back after our summer respite, season 17.
Woo!
Pretty amazing.
Hello.
Been a summer.
I know. I would say that you probably all had interesting summers, but I'm going to say Sean had the most interesting summer because he went to go see Banksy's Dismaland in the UK.
It was very dismal.
I'm sure it was. He's not known for being pleasant.
It was really cool. I mean, you see a lot of what it is in the photos, but being there was quite an experience.
How does one go about building this? It must have cost millions of dollars to build. Who paid for it?
I actually have no idea. I should be looking into that, but it was an old seaside resort town called Weston-super-Mare on the west coast of the UK. And it was a place called the Tropicana. It was like an old seawater swimming pool, I believe.
Okay.
So he used to go there as a kid, Banksy, and just grew up, and it was abandoned, and he converted it to this.
I mean, I would imagine you need like permission to do that.
Oh,
you must have gotten some kind of, hey guys, I'm doing this.
World's most famous street artist comes to you and says, I want to turn this into a theme park.
Yeah.
They'll do it.
I saw the line from your social feed. Huge line, right?
Yeah. A queue, as they call it.
The queue. I'm sorry, you European people. That's right. And they hire people. There's real people who work there, right?
Yeah, they're
actors.
They're all actors.
Yeah,
they're all. I do photography a lot, and I have one of the guys carrying a big balloon that says "I am an imbecile," and he's looking really pissed and looking right at the camera and giving me a middle finger, flipping me off.
But that's part of their role at Dismaland is to be miserable.
Yeah.
Is there any legal repercussions for that, or
No, I think there
is creative.
There were a few articles on that in terms of
Michael Eisner. Did he visit Michael?
the small print on all their materials were funny. It was like no weapons, no et cetera, and no legal representatives of the Walt Disney Company. So it was pretty funny.
That's amazing. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hey, Mallory, you have a dog.
Yeah. Yes.
That was your summer win.
Yeah, she's still around. She's still hanging out. She's visiting with family at the moment, so all that fun stuff.
And you're going to be a resident of Brooklyn soon.
No, I'm no longer
a resident
of
of Queens. Right.
No, I'm actually going to be a resident of Manhattan.
Staten Island.
Oh, wait.
We swapped. Wait
a minute.
I went from Manhattan to Brooklyn.
And you went from Brooklyn to Manhattan.
Yes, I will be...
How did that happen?
I will be hopefully occupying Washington Heights.
That's a good area.
Yeah, it's
What's
exciting.
that, like 166th or 175th or something?
171st.
Okay, it was close.
So
in the
up
middle
there.
there. Yeah.
I could walk the GW Bridge if I so chose.
That's like Columbia. You're in good hands there.
Yeah, I'm 3 blocks from Columbia. I feel super safe about that.
And the A's there comes right down. Yeah, good
the
for you.
The A, the C, the 1, all the good stuff.
Good
and
for
it's
you.
the biggest New York City apartment that ever existed.
Really?
Or at least that I've ever heard of. At like 1,000 square feet.
It's not the size of your chair?
The kitchen is bigger than my last bedroom.
Wow.
It's great.
Well, there you go.
It's good times.
Mr. Kane, what are you up to?
Besides
being clean shaven and with a pomp haircut.
Living my dismal life of bemusement.
Well done.
Yes.
I hear your rumors are you're already planning the road trip for next spring.
Since you told me to, yes. The rumors are true.
Very nice.
So the goal is to carve out uncharted territory as I seek to complete all 50 states by the time I'm 30.
Well, we got a couple of top of the show announcements before we kick off. You want to tell us about the fancy new thing that you created with the news feed or whatever?
Well, it stems out of our ability to curate content. I've always had a dream that we would somehow send this out to the masses, and we have done just that. You can go to news with S.
Like plural.
Plural.
Instead of new.
.stupidcancer.org and see what we are up to and reading and get some insider information.
And it's not Gawker for Cancer, but I just said that. So make of it what you want.
Yes.
No, it's very cool. And upcoming very soon, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, OMG East here in New York City.
12 days away.
What, 12 days away?
12
OMG
days
East
away.
in New York City. And OMG West registration launches very soon, too.
It will be October.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stuff.
I think I have plans today of OMG East.
What? Kenny's going to be away.
Problems.
And we are hosting our very, very first special fundraising event here in New York City called Toast. Special thanks to Sean and his amazing team building it up with the committee there. Toast is going to be on October 7th here in New York City at...
It's at the Chester Meatpacking District.
And if you want to learn more, make a donation or attend, the website is...
toast.stupidcancer.org.
So Toast with us on October 7th. Really big news. And finally, Instapeer is reached 1,700 beta users in our public phase right now. It's very exciting. We're having about 20,000 people chatting with each other every single week, which is pretty fascinating to think what's happening there. So if you have not yet downloaded it, we worked out most of the bugs. It's for Android, iPad, iPhone. You can get it in your App Store. New releases just came out yesterday in the App Store, so it's super cool.
You just said we had 1,700 people and 20,000 people chatting.
No, 20,000 chats.
Right.
Messages
Exchanged.
between users.
Yes.
So if you do the math, 1,600 people are having 20,000 conversations.
Or it's your dad having one chat.
20,000. That's exactly what's happening. And then this show is actually proudly sponsored, which is always nice. And we have to thank our sponsors, Sigma Tau, Eli Lilly and Company Oncology, and Spencer's Online. You guys are awesome. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you very much. And with that, let's kick off the show. Let's get Megan on the line. Joining us tonight in our Survivor Spotlight, Megan Sullivan's dream of seeing all 7 wonders of the world remained just that, a dream, for 3 years. But it took only one difficult month for it to become reality. Last November, Sullivan, who's 31 years old, fell while rock climbing in Yosemite National Park. And soon after, she got hit by a car while riding in the Vespa and then got skin cancer. I'm going to stay away from her. All in the same month. Anyway, please welcome to the Stupid Cancer Show, Megan Sullivan. Megan. I guess I'm glad that you're 3,000 miles away after having all that bad luck. But it sounds like your luck's turned around.
Exactly.
Well, we're really excited to have you on the show. The minute I saw your story hit the social universe, I was really inspired. Because I would never be caught rock climbing or near a Vespa, for that matter. So I really admire people who take those risks and really live. So before we get to your story, have you always been sort of adventure-seeking? Was that sort of in your DNA?
Yes and no. I think it's been more recent in the last 4 or 5 years. I got out of a relationship, kind of a long-term relationship, and I think it was one of those things where you kind of go to the extreme a little bit, and that's where I got really into rock climbing. So I kind of escaped to Yosemite every weekend just because I didn't really know how to date. So I'd rather not go out on a date and just go and climb rocks. So I did that for a good 4 years.
I kind of wonder how that would look on eHarmony, but then again, I've been married for 10 years, so.
I didn't even want to know. I don't even mess with that stuff, so yeah.
So I guess I have to ask, have you seen the Reese Witherspoon movie Wild?
Yes, I've heard of it, and a lot of people gave me the link to that. And I still actually, I think I watched a few minutes on a plane, but I fell asleep. But I do need to watch that movie.
I mean, I don't want to compare apples to apples, but it's the story of a woman with a bad marriage, and she decides to just go off on her own with a giant backpack with no experience crossing the country with sandals. So
yeah, exactly.
It's electric performance, though, but I couldn't help but think of that. So you really, I commend you for choosing. We use the expression "get busy living" here, but you were doing that long before you got diagnosed. But then you fell. Obviously, that's got to be. Again, I'm not an athlete per se in any way, shape, or form. But if you're an avid rock climber and you fall, is that like an emotional thing?
Yeah, I think in this case, there was a lot going on because, I mean, rock climbing, you accept the risks. You know you're going to fall, especially aid climbing. But usually it's pretty safe. And what happened in this climb is I had been training for the climbing El Cap in Yosemite Valley for about 3 years. It was kind of that goal. It's very similar to training for a marathon, really. And I got to a point where I was kind of testing my luck a little too far because I had I ran out the route, meaning that I placed very minimal gear. And I got to a certain point where I knew I was falling, didn't think it was going to be a big deal because a piece of gear should have caught me about 2 or 3 feet later. And then, of course, that piece flew on me. And then I had run out the route so far that I ended up falling about 50 feet.
Oh, wow.
And that's not normal.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually don't survive falls like that. And it was just, I was very thankful that I didn't hit any ledge. It was a clean fall. My climbing partner, I think, was more shocked and he didn't sleep for a few nights after that, just having to witness that. And that fall was definitely a reawakening of sorts, just because it was, wow, I'm not invincible,
Right.
This could have gotten really bad, but luckily it didn't.
So I see a nonprofit forming here of people laying mattresses down at the bottom of cliffs as a gesture of good faith.
Yeah, I mean, at this point I was 2,000 feet up, so
right.
I mean, I don't think a mattress would have helped.
Well, it was a nice thought. I'm trying to be,
I care. Creative. It was a creative thought. I like it.
So you come from the agency world, right? That's your background?
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been with an advertising agency for about over 4 years now, actually. My background is film production. I went to film school and then got this opportunity to be in a production company within an advertising agency.
So kind of a dream job.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts here. You fell, you got hit by a car. And then while recovering from that car, how was your skin cancer detected?
Well, so this was another thing that happened to me was I tore my knee a year ago, and so I had knee surgery. And I got to a point where I had met my medical deductible, and I thought, oh, I just need to get any kind of anything done while I don't have to pay for it because I met my deductible. So I was like, what do I need to do? And I was like, everyone always talks about getting their skin checked. I should probably do that since I go outside a lot. I'm not a tanner or anything like that. I know I go outside and climb and all that kind of fun stuff. So it was one of those, let me write a list of everything medically wrong that could actually be possibly wrong with me, and I should get that checked out.
Just run out the clock and see how many doctors you can see. Like speed doctor dating, yes. Exactly.
So then I made the appointment, but it was 3 months prior because sometimes it's pretty hard to get into dermatologists. And so it was one of those things where it just happened this appointment came during, what was it? I fell off the rock. A week later, I got hit by a car. And then my appointment the appointments I scheduled 3 months ago came along, and I was like, well, again, I'm getting pretty used to the ER right now, so a doctor's appointment is just right up my alley.
Right.
So the best part was actually going in, and then they do the full, skin check, and you should have seen my skin at this point. I mean, it looked like I fell 50 feet and got hit by a car. So my dermatologist was kind of like, "Are you sure you're okay?
Right.
Is everything going okay in your life?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then it just by chance, I had this mark at the top of my forehead, and I didn't really think anything of it. To be honest, I thought it was a pimple that went wrong, and it was just taking a really long time to heal. It was just this red mark, and she didn't even catch it. And it wasn't until the end, for pure vanity's sake, that I asked for some kind of cream that might be able to clean it up. And she, took a look at it again, and asked how long it had been there. And before I know it, I was thinking, oh, I guess it's been 6 months since it's been there. And she did a biopsy right then. And the funny thing about that was, I didn't think it was going to be anything. So, but the biopsy, I had to shoot on Monday for the Mockingjay premiere, so I had to be on the red carpet, and all I kept thinking was that I was going to have this massive bandage on my forehead while I had to ask people these interview questions. And then it turned out that I found out that it was basal cell on that following Monday.
Well, we do a lot of shows on cancer, and we talk about melanoma and skin cancer and basal cell carcinomas as gateways to difficult, more invasive diagnoses. I commend you on having sort of the wherewithal to consider that your, dermatology matters. We especially for quantifying that you don't tan. I mean, I feel like there's almost a guilt there that people have to say, but I don't tan. But there are so many laws out there that are now banning minors from tanning because that's all they do, and they're getting they're not even getting the skin cancer; it's jumping right to melanoma. So, props to you for having that. But again, the dermatologists have another level of conversation going on now about how do you take this seriously. With skin cancer being the #1 cancer in the world, it just doesn't have the same level of invasiveness that melanoma or thyroid cancer or things that would have. But what was your reaction immediately following that?
Immediately, I was pretty much in shock because it was a situation where I was on set, so I was at work and I was just having to go down to hair and makeup in 15 minutes, and I got this call. And again, you get the call and you think, wait. You think it's just going to be like, oh, okay, we got your results, everything's cool. And then, it was it is cancer. We need to schedule an appointment immediately to get it surgically removed. And it's that, wait, what?
Right.
No, this doesn't happen to me. What? And so I was in shock. And then, luckily my stepfather is an oncologist up in Seattle. And so immediately I called him, but he wasn't available until about earlier that afternoon, and this was in the morning. So I didn't know how serious it was, and obviously I wanted to talk to him so that he could talk to them and all that fun stuff. So yeah, it was. And then I think leading just all the prior events that had happened to me the last 2 weeks, it finally was like the third thing that happened that was like, are you kidding me? Really? I thought I had all my bad luck for the year.
Right.
Yeah.
So those hours between you fortunately having an uncle? Stepfather, as an oncologist, the hours between leaving him the message and him calling you must have been insane.
Yeah. And then, of course, I had to put a strong face on and go straight to work and act like nothing was wrong.
Right.
But, yeah. But luckily, when I got on the call with him, he was like, yes, this sucks. But of all cancers, this is the best one you can have,
right.
and you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. So, and then he himself was like, I'm so glad that you actually went in, because
right.
a lot of times you'll just see this, it will go unnoticed for a very long time, and it could have even gotten worse. So,
well, there's but I mean, so a couple of things in your favor here. It was right in your face. A lot of times, these things pop up in parts of your body that you cover up or you don't see all the time.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like top of mind, pun intended, to be something to be concerned about, let alone having to be proactive. I like your message, of sort of. I mean, we talk about self-exam a lot in youth, but it's not the same thing. This isn't like a breast exam or a testicular cancer self-exam. This is knowing your skin and being aware of your behavior. If you are exposed outdoors a lot, if you're even indoors, you can still get it. That hats don't work and shirts don't work, but how would you? Let's just talk to the next step thing, because we got about maybe have about 10 minutes left here. So you're comforted by your stepfather, and he tells you that everything's going to be okay. How was it treated? You had the surgery, and was there? How do they do that? Is it plastic surgery? They cover up the scar nice and neat these days?
Yeah, so I went and saw the plastic surgeon, and I think that was the other thing, is that at first when they said plastic surgeon, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not going to have a scar. This is going to be great. And maybe they'll give me a nose job. I don't know.
Right.
And then I got there, and, you have the pre-op, and the person I was talking to, she talked about how, you have to clear the margin. So you get it removed, and then they test the area around the skin that they just removed. And then, but be prepared that you may have to go through more than a couple rounds. So basically I showed up at 7 a.m. and they wanted me to block out the entire day till 5 p.m.
Right.
And then so, I'm asking, so how big can this scar actually be? And, and then she kind of, she was honest. She said that, if you go through 4 rounds, it can be pretty significant, measured it out on my forehead to tell me. And that's when I kind of freaked out a little bit. Because, again, going back to the whole vanity thing, it's like, am I going to have a scar in the middle of my forehead? And then, then I asked, but it's plastic surgery, so you can cover up the scar, right? And she's like, well, no, you'll still see the scar.
Oh, great.
Like, oh, cool. So then I had, the surgery wasn't for another week. And so in my head, I just kept on having these nightmares about this gnarly scar that I was going to have. But as I got closer to the appointment, I think I was okay with it, because it was like, at least I can rock the scar. It would be a cool story.
Badge of honor.
And luckily, I cleared the margins first round. So it's fairly small, and I can cover it up with makeup because I'm a girl, so that's good.
No, that is. Again, like we talk about. Our message in cancer is that there really are no good cancers, and everyone's experience is the learning opportunity for someone else, and it's not about how much worse or better it is for anybody else, because all of our stories matter, because all of our stories can make a difference for someone else. So
yeah.
So in your case, yes, we're thrilled that it wasn't worse, but it's an opportunity to educate, and that is sort of what you're doing these days, right?
Exactly. And what's been really cool is just people coming up to me. I had a friend talking about her mother who just had basal cell, and it was on the top of her head, and she didn't notice it for years. So it became actually much more gnarly. because, again, top of your head, you just don't see it, but she was a marathon runner. So she, was constantly in the sun. And the thing is, especially hair, and that's what you start to realize as, a guy or girl, is that, the hair isn't a sunscreen, and if you're constantly outside, like, you need to protect with some sort of form. And she thought that my story was really cool because even though, the dermatologist said I was, I'm pretty young to have this type of skin cancer, but at the same time, I think it was a good reality check because I am protecting myself like crazy now when I go out into the sun because it's not worth it, and that was the same thing when my friend's mom had the surgery and realized how big it became. It's all about preventative care and then also going in and getting your skin checked once a year because it is one of those things that you'll kind of put off. And I'm guilty of it too. The only reason I went in was because I had a zero deductible. But it was really important because it could have been a lot worse.
No, and it's good. And the one thing I'll point out is one of my dear friends is the head of dermatology at New York University, and she always talks about the understanding that skin cancer is kind of like an iceberg sometimes, and you just see the top, but it can be very invasive. So kudos to you on getting in round one done. So in our 2 minutes left, where are you at these days? And I love your hashtag is live more now, clearly, and your goal to do the 7 wonders of the world.
Yeah. So, the 7 Wonders of the World was a dream that I had, 3 years ago, and it wasn't until, after this gnarly month that I had that I realized, what better time to do this trip than now. And because it's like, I feel like you can always make excuses of why you can't do something. And I was, for the past 3 years talking about, I have a new job. I should really focus on this. I should focus on this. And instead, on a whim, it was like, life is short. This is the biggest dream I have currently in my life right now. I'm going to do it. And that was the whole 7 Wonders thing. And currently, I have this whole concept of, living more now because the thing is that we really only have this one life, not to sound like a public service announcement here, but it is true. And you choose every day how you want to live that. And, I work in an agency, which can be kind of, you have definite ups, definite downs. Clients can be hard and difficult. Coworkers can be hard and difficult, but it's the way you make of your day every day. So if you come in with a bad attitude, you're going to have a bad day. But if you come in with a great attitude, you're going to have a better day. And that's the same with just an activity you want to do. My big thing is, I love to go out to Yosemite every weekend. And yes, that's a lot of driving, but to me, it's worth to get out of the city and have this amazing adventure every weekend than to sit home and, watch TV or something like that. So my whole thing is live more now, every day, live life to the fullest.
And how can people find you on Instagram? What's your handle?
Meg the Legend.
I can't think of any better way to finish this interview at Meg the Legend. Megan Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We look forward to having you involved in our movement. Good luck.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, Kenny, and now the news.
Hello, I'm Kent Brockman, and this is Eye on Cancer.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Head on over to events.stupidcancer.org. That's events.stupidcancer.org. Sign up for meetup alerts and never miss an event again. If you'd like to learn more about hosting your own meetup, check out stupidcancer.org/meetup. We've got some events happening across this great nation. We have Urbandale, Iowa, Dedham, Iowa, Hallandale Beach, Florida, San Diego, California, Arvada, Colorado, Apple Valley, Minnesota, and Sacramento, California.
That's amazing. Very impressive. No one should face cancer alone because isolation sucks. Download Instapeer for iPhone, iPad, and Android. Create your account and instantly start chatting with someone like you who's been there and walked in your shoes. Join our community of cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers now. Instapeer.org.
We launch a newsfeed weekly email on our site, news.stupidcancer.org. Check out what we're reading 24/7 and don't miss a beat. Subscribe at news, plural, .stupidcancer.org.
Cancer is expensive. Check out cancermademebroke.com. That's cancermademebroke.com. Our national partnership with Give Forward, the #1 platform to start a medical fundraiser. You didn't ask to get sick, and your community wants to help you. Again, cancermademebroke.com to learn more and start your personal fundraiser today.
Support our programs and services by heading over to stupidcancerstore.org. You'll feel great and look great in your new Stupid Cancer gear. That's stupidcancerstore.org. Be proud, wear Stupid Cancer.
And that is your Stupid Cancer News. All right, this is exciting. Our main segment here. Emily McDowell joining us live in studio. Writer, illustrator, CEO, and founder of an award-winning stationery and gift company, Emily McDowell Studio. She is a Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor, and this May launched a line of empathy cards, which is taking the world by storm. I am so thrilled to welcome here, staring her in the eyes, in the face, right here, live in the Stupid Cancer Studio, Emily McDowell. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, my goodness. It's like a celebrity sighting here at Stupid Cancer headquarters. I'm thrilled that you were able to be here in New York and join us live in studio. We love our in-studio guests.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
No, you're a big deal.
Oh, it's weird.
I know, it is weird. Get used to it. You did something, it worked. They say that success is the one mistake that went right. So all you had to do was get cancer, and look at that.
Right,
yeah,
totally.
Yeah. So let's start with that. I mean, Hodgkin's lymphoma, there is no good cancers, and I'm sure you heard that too.
No, there is no good cancer, but I did hear that a lot. That was a thing. Like,
so talk us through, what was your life like beforehand? What were you doing? We were talking before the show. You're in the agency world.
I was. This was actually pre-agency world.
Oh, okay.
I was 24, and I was actually working in San Francisco at a startup called the Industry Standard, which was a weekly magazine that was around from, I want to say, 96 to 2000. And I was diagnosed in 2000. And at the time, I was working a lot and had this great, it was this sort of internet economy bubble the first time in
I remember
San
those
Francisco.
days,
So
yes.
it was really, like, to this day, the most amazing job I've ever had. And I own a company now, you know? Like, so that was a really good job.
Yes.
I was traveling a lot, working a lot, had a totally misguided idea of what having a job was like, because I got lots of, tons of free sushi and an unlimited expense
I had
account
ski trips too back then.
Oh,
too.
totally. Yeah, I had an Amex that I didn't even see the bill.
I know.
You know, like, what was that?
Those were good days.
It was great. I missed that. I'd basically been feeling like crap for 2 years, and I'd been going to the doctor. And I went to various doctors, and nobody really could pinpoint what was wrong. And people kept saying, "Oh, maybe you have chronic fatigue, or you have fibromyalgia, or you have, maybe Lyme disease," was another sort of thing. And
right.
I got a couple of prescriptions for, like, Vicodin. I mean, it was just sort of generalized, like, "Oh yeah, you eventually." And I even had a doctor say at one point, like, eventually something will probably come to light, and we just don't.
Famous last words.
We just don't know what it is,
right.
And I was like, all right, well, cool. I'm just going to go back to work now, because I guess I have stuff to do, and I can't really just keep going to doctors who don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is this comedy of errors for how many months?
Oh, it was like 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
This
wow.
was really
wow.
starting right. Maybe within the 6 months after I graduated college.
Right.
And then. It's sort of a weird, long story. I presented with a bunch of symptoms that are really atypical for Hodgkin's, and I didn't have any of the symptoms that are normal.
Like dancing.
Totally. Like
spontaneous
euphoria.
dancing.
Yeah, no, it was... It was like I had this... It was... I was actually ended up being admitted into the hospital because I had this... this skin rash on my legs that turned into this crazy infection. And they thought at first that I had some sort of, like, Ebola-like communicable disease. I was in isolation.
That's the best misdiagnosis
Oh my
ever,
God,
by the
it was
way.
the best.
Yes.
It was. It really was the good cancer after that.
Yeah.
So, I was
anything better than Ebola,
right? I know
that should be one of your cards. Thank God it wasn't Ebola.
Right. So yeah, it was. I ended up being. I was at the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks before I was actually diagnosed.
Wow.
And they ended up just doing eventually just started doing kind of full body X-rays and CTs because they just didn't know, they couldn't figure it out.
You were a lab experiment.
And I was a lab experiment, and actually it was even, they let me go. They did like a full body CT scan, and then the floor nurse let me go. And
where was this, by the way?
UCSF.
Okay.
In San Francisco.
Right.
And they were like, you're good, like you're stable, keep taking these antibiotics, and you're go home. And so I went out to eat actually with my boyfriend at the time, and we got a call while we were out to eat from the doctor saying, they screwed up and they let you go home before we actually read the results of your CT, and you need to come back to the hospital.
Well, that's a quality message right there.
Yeah. So it was like, all right. So went back, and I had a tumor that was about the size of a baseball in my mediastinal cavity. And so they figured...
And that doesn't belong there.
No.
No.
It turns out it doesn't. And so,
note to self.
Yep.
Right.
So they figured, they figured it was some sort of lymphoma, and then they had to biopsy it and readmitted me and figured out it was Hodgkin's.
Wow. So then the rabbit hole opens up.
Yep.
And you get swallowed down the hole.
Yep.
And can you talk us through what the next couple of weeks looked like for you?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, it was. I mean, this was 15 years ago, so it's not exactly fresh in my memory. But I do. I mean, of course, it's a couple of weeks that don't ever forget.
Right.
Because you just you suddenly feel like an alien who's been put, in or a person put into an alien planet. I guess is kind of how I felt like. All of a sudden, nothing in my life resembled anything from the previous day.
Yep.
And so it was like, well, and I was also, this infection that I had, I was really sick. I mean, I didn't wear shoes for 7 months because this infection on my feet, it was gross, and it sort of opened up, and it was a bad scene.
Thank God the Instagram didn't exist back then.
Right? It was a bad.
Yeah.
I was like an exhibit at the National Dermatology Conference at the Grand Rounds.
Wow,
because it was so weird. And
I'm thinking I have in my mind like that 1918 surgical, atrium of them all.
No,
looking
seriously.
down at you.
I mean, it was crazy, and all my stuff was in a teaching hospital too. So they would be like 20 med students coming
just
in
stare at you,
and being like, "Oh my God, does that hurt?" Like asking questions. Like, it was like, "Yeah, like what do you think?"
Right.
Like, and it was so it was 2 weeks, and I've got these bandages up to my knees, and I'm wearing like bunny slippers because I can't wear shoes, and I'm trying.
You're how old at this time?
24.
Right. Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out. My boyfriend and I were living in San Francisco, and it was clear, like, I wasn't going to be able to work during treatment, and it was like, there were many very lucky things about this, and one of them was that I had great health insurance.
Right.
And so
through an employer?
Through my employer.
Yeah.
With all that venture capital, they got me really good health insurance.
Wow. Yeah.
And the other thing that
there.
was very fortunate and strange was that when I was filling out my intake paperwork to become a new employee, I checked the box that said, "Do you want long-term disability insurance?" Which I don't, as a 24-year-old, or
why would you think that?
22 when I started there, I don't know, and I didn't even remember doing it, but I said yes, I would like $6 taken out of my paycheck every month for this, and so I think it was 75% of my salary for that whole year. That
it's
I
like
was
accidental employee benefits.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so we ended up moving. I'm from Boston originally, and the best at the time, the best Hodgkin's hospital, and it still may be in the country, was the Dana-Farber.
Right.
Which was covered under my insurance, and so we moved. My boyfriend came with me, and we left our jobs and life in San Francisco and
you
moved
flew east.
East. Yep. And then had to figure out where to live and how life was going to work.
Well, everything you're talking about, like, these are difficult things to do at that age when you're well.
Right. Right.
Let alone.
Right.
Yeah. First of all, props to your boyfriend for sticking with you at the time.
I know. He was really fantastic, and we are no longer together, but we were together for 8 years and are still friends. And he he really was my main support system for the duration of my illness. I mean, he took me to every doctor's appointment, every chemo, everything. And really, and there were times when I was like, will you please leave? Because you're not living your life. Like, I don't necessarily want you to come with me.
That's
and do
like
this.
Reverse guilt that a lot of patients feel for their...
super guilty. I mean, I felt, when he had decided I'm going to come with you, I'm going to leave San Francisco and leave this job and come with you and do this. I really was like, I don't know if I want you to do that.
Right.
Because I felt incredibly guilty that he would put his life on hold to be with me.
I was just reading your bio here.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that stuck out when Mallory was writing this yesterday was this notion of stigma and what we all face in general with cancer. But why is it so different? Why do we exist? What is Stupid Cancer about? What are you about? We're disrupting this idea of what it means to look sick, to feel sick, to act sick, and what the country and the average people don't know to do when they think they want to be, gregarious or somewhat sensitive. And I just love that you were called Sir at Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
You have to tell that story. I'm sure. Did it happen more than once first?
Oh, it happened constantly. It happened constantly, and it was just like, because there was a Starbucks, of course, because we live in America, and there was a Starbucks every 7 feet.
Yes.
There was a Starbucks near where I was living, and so one of the 4 things that brought me joy was to walk down and get a coffee. And
right.
But yes, the number of times that I was called Sir at that Starbucks was heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you lost your hair. Mm-hmm. What were the other typical or atypical things that you had gone through? Did you gain weight? You lose weight? Did you
weight was about the
nausea?
Same. Yeah, nausea was pretty bad. The only food that I ever wanted to eat for the whole 7 months that I was having chemo was McDonald's vanilla soft serve and cranberry juice.
Wow.
Which was not a really nutritious.
No.
I don't know that.
Well, it starts nutritious because there's dairy and fruit,
right.
But then it goes downhill.
Oh,
right
it goes
there.
south really fast. Yeah, no, it was like the opposite of a macrobiotic diet.
Yeah.
I definitely had that thing where things that normally taste good taste terrible, and things that you don't. I mean, I'd never really cared about soft serve or cranberry juice prior.
Just kind of the surge.
Right. It was. Did
you have the ABVD treatment?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Yep. Well, it worked.
Yes, it did. It did.
So I wanna pivot now, because what you're doing today is so endemic of how younger people are disrupting the cancer experience and thinking about this from the perspective of like the hilarity of it, and that it's actually acceptable to be funny and a little sardonic about these experiences. And you're out 15 years now.
Yeah.
So even still, there are people that are doing this in treatment. We see people doing, lip syncing of, Macklemore in the infusion units, and in movies and films. I mean, we both come from advertising, and just to see how pop culture is absorbing cancer. We look at like Meet Earl and the Dying Girl and Chasing Life on ABC Family. 50-50 with Seth Rogen was a turning point in cancer comedy. What's been your assessment of this? How do you feel that? Why is this all happening? And we've both been. I'm at 20 years. You're at 15 years. We've seen the birth of this.
I think it's happening because people really got tired of the way that cancer was treated and seen in our culture. I mean, it really doesn't. When I was sick, there was no Stupid Cancer. There were no organizations for young people. There was nothing that I felt like I could relate to at all. I mean, I remember going to a couple of wellness community meetings and being the only person there under 60, and just coming out of there feeling worse than I'd felt going in. And I really, and when and after my treatment was over and when I went into remission, my attitude at the time was, I just want to put this behind me, and I don't necessarily want to incorporate cancer survivorship into my public identity. I don't really because it was kind of a thing that my personal experience with it was that it made 99% of other people very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so I was like, and so a lot of the time when I would talk about it, or when it would come up, or when it would be, I would be in front of someone's face, clearly sick, you find as a patient that you use your own energy to try to make other people feel better or more comfortable about your illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that from what it seems to me, people, as the internet has happened and as it's become easier and easier for communities to form around things like illness, around things where people are geographically not connected to each other but are connected by circumstance, it's having these support networks and having other people to talk to and realizing, like, oh yeah, this is a universal thing. Like, this isn't just me. I'm not on an island.
Right.
There's
No,
all of
it's
these,
okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And there are so many other people who are feeling the same way that I'm feeling, and now I'm able to communicate and connect with them.
Right.
And I think as that's happened, it sort of opened the door to wider discussion of that in pop culture, and feeling like, oh, this is really what this is like, instead of this sort of behind closed doors, like, I don't know if we should talk about that.
Right. I was diagnosed in the 90s, in 95, 96, and I hung my head in shame. I didn't talk to anybody for years about this, and it wasn't until I was able to start playing piano again, which was my career at the time before I was diagnosed, that I felt okay coming out of that closet. And even in doing that, it made people even more uncomfortable. Granted, it was around the time, 2000, 2002, 3, 4, where this wasn't a discussable thing. It was still like almost the Whisperers campaign from thousands of years ago. And I just look to how far we've come in 2015 here, where there's a podcast with millions of people. There's all these cancer podcasts out there. There's all these cancer stories in pop culture, in the media. And yet we still see the dying kids commercials on television.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what you have chosen to do, and I want to get into, where did this idea come from? Because these are things that live in our head, the empathy card concept. We all think these. There's all these funny cancer top 10 lists of what you shouldn't say to people, and in terms of content, we live in an age of content now. So everyone's content is public. You mentioned the internet being a thing today that wasn't there 10 or 12 years ago for us. What was the moment where you realized that you didn't necessarily have to be quiet about this? I mean, it's perfectly acceptable that people want to put this behind them, but now you're wearing it on your sleeve.
Right.
How did that transformation happen?
Well, that transformation happened. I mean, there are a couple different things, different components to it. I mean, first of all is that I launched this brand, my Emily McDowell Studio, 2.5 years ago, and it started out as greeting cards, and now we're gifts too. But really, the point of it and the purpose behind it, and all of the work in my brand, is about telling the truth. And it's about, and what I sort of said when I was starting, and that's still true, is these are cards for the relationships we have and not the relationships we wish we had.
Right.
And when I started this, I saw an opportunity within greeting cards specifically to do something different, and to do something that was disruptive, and that was relatable, and that was not necessarily aspirational, and that reflected different kinds of relationships, like not just like, oh, I love you on Valentine's Day, but like, oh, we're kind of dating but not really dating, but I should get you something because it's Valentine's Day, so here you go. And so I had this platform and this brand,
right?
And
But this was a natural extension of your career.
Yes. So, yes, I worked in advertising for about 10 years. And so I really honed my skills in terms of learning how people think and learning how to identify a concept and an idea that is a sort of universal truth.
Right.
And how to translate that into something that people relate to. And in 2011 was a big turning point for me. That was the year that I quit my last full-time agency job. And it was also the year that my college roommate and a very close friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 3 months later. And it was a big turning point for me.
Is that the first time it kind of crept back up on you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In that, I had really put cancer very much behind me, and I didn't think about it very much. I was, of course, like scared for several years after remission and all that stuff. But in terms of my day-to-day existence, it was not cancer survivor, if you had to have me list 5 things about my identity, it would not have really made it into that top 5.
Right.
It was something that I had put behind me.
But here a trigger shows up in your life.
Right, but then Amy got sick, and and what happened was it became really clear to me. One of the things that was the hardest thing, I think probably the hardest thing for me about being sick myself, was the feelings of loneliness and isolation that happened.
Of course.
Feeling like nobody knew what to say, nobody knew what to do. A lot of people who'd been close to me basically bailed just because they were afraid, and they had no idea, how to handle that. And I was sort of the first person, among my friends that had been sick that anybody knew. Up until that point, I think illness had been something, cancer had been something that was like a grandparent, not even people's parents. We were really young, and that was really difficult. And it took a long time for me to realize that it wasn't about me, and it wasn't like, oh, people don't care about you, but it was more just that there's so much fear.
Sure.
People just didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Amy got sick, what ended up happening.
And how did you know her?
She was my college roommate.
Okay.
We went to undergrad together. One of my college roommates, and a lot of our mutual friends ended up kind of turning to me and saying, what do I say to her? And I realized, and it was really like, it seems so silly, but it was like, oh, this experience that I had, that I worked so hard to put behind me, is actually something that I could use to help other people. I mean,
right.
I can be sort of a cancer translator here, in a way that other people can't. And so that was like a huge, like, well, duh, of course. And so that year, I also ended up quitting my job and feeling like, there's something else that I want to do. I have no idea what it is, but
right.
I don't know that
the calling was upon you.
Yeah, and it was, just I got to do something else here. And I ended up starting this. I had an Etsy store on the side, and then I ended up launching this brand in 2013 in a big way for wholesale, and based on the success of sort of a viral Valentine card.
Right.
And I had the empathy card idea at the time, but I deliberately decided, I'm gonna just hold on to this for a little bit, because I think that I want to launch this brand, and I want to just be very careful that I don't come out with a whole bunch of these, because I think that this is sort of a big idea, and I don't want to do this in the beginning of this brand, because then I worry that I'll be pigeonholed as
the cancer card
girl, and I don't want that. That's not what I want to do. And I also want to give myself the opportunity to build this a little bit, because I think I'm onto something here, and I think that this empathy card thing is if it hits the right audience, will be very big.
Well, it's so there's so many verticals to it too. It's not just like, if you can disrupt Valentine's Day, it's like, are we dating? Because here's a card. Like the idea of that is amazing. I ascribe to the Steve Jobs philosophy of business, which is don't give people what they want, give them what they didn't know they could have.
Right.
And you're telling, this is what, I'm 20 years old, this is amazing. I want to just read some of these on the air. If you haven't, what's the website? If people can check them out.
It's EmilyMcDowell.com.
EmilyMcDowell.com. So there's a card here. Please let me be the first to punch the next person who tells you everything happens for a reason. That's exactly... That's it. Here's another one. One more chemo down. Let's celebrate with whatever doesn't taste disgusting. They're so on par. They're so, well, this just sucks. I wish I had a better way to say it, but my brain feels totally stuck right now. But I just want you to know that even though I might not always have exactly the right words, you will always have me. So I'm not going anywhere. So I hope you're cool with that. It's just honest.
Yes.
It's
just honest.
So let me take the next. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Empathy has become a big thing now, and I was even struck before talking with the show that there's a discipline now about understanding empathy and teaching empathy and imparting empathy, because people can feel it, not know what it really means or what it is. Talk to us about how this embodies that philosophy.
Well, when we were coming up with what to call these cards, because they were the internal name for them while we were developing them was just like illness cards or cancer cards or you know, and sympathy to me is sort of like, oh, poor you, I'm sorry. And empathy to me is more like, there's this really beautiful, let me get down in this hole with you and let's talk through this. Like, I'm with you and not just like, I'm sort of looking down at you. There's this really awesome, Brene Brown, who is fantastic, and who has done a ton of research and written several books about shame and empathy and vulnerability. There's somebody created a cartoon that illustrates the difference between empathy and sympathy. That is, it goes along with a passage from one of her books that is so great, and it's a person, or I think it's a bear down in a hole, and sympathy is like people walking by up on the ground and like peering down into the hole and being like, I'm so sorry you're in that hole. Oh, that must really suck for you.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like bye, and just walking, you know. And then the empathy person gets a ladder and climbs down in and sits next to the person in the hole and you know, says, I see you here in this hole, and I am with you in this experience. And
and one of my takeaways from this is, and again, you said it so eloquently before, it's what to say when you don't know what to say.
Right.
How does that manifest itself through this? Are these cards the embodiment of that? Because is it, I don't really know how to talk to you about this, but I'm here for you, but here's a card?
Sometimes,
yes.
You know, some of them are.
Yes.
I think that, you know, some of them are, I think some of the ones that are more about sort of joking about, like the one you just picked up. Read that one.
I'm so sorry you're sick. I want you to know that I will never try to sell you on some random treatment I read about on the internet.
Right. So there are a few of these that are very specific to very common experiences that people who are ill, whether it's cancer or whatever it is, hear all the time. And those have really resonated with people because it's someone validating their experience in life.
Right.
Like in this way for the first time. I mean, it's like why, like, I love Amy Schumer, and it's because I feel like I'm 40 years old, and for the first time, someone on TV understands what it's like to be me.
Right.
And that's how these, you know, I think that these were able to achieve some of that with the feedback that we've gotten from people.
So by the sheer merit of giving this to somebody who didn't know it was possible for them to think someone else understood in a way, by the merit of just giving them the card, you are endowing empathy.
You are, right, exactly. You're saying you are, by sharing an experience, you're sort of in on the joke, you know, and you're saying, like, I get this. I get that this happens to you.
Right.
I see your reality. You know, I'm in there with you. I'm not just walking by and waving down at you. You know.
Right. And we if you every now and then on our wall we post these mantra-ish things that you may have seen, but one of them that did really well was, you know, it's cancer, not cooties. You can touch me. You know, so I mean that's cancer specific, but we have many friends in like the fibromyalgia and the lupus universe. Like, it's just the misunderstanding of what it means to not be, quote, normal or, quote, healthy, and the perceptions therein of stigma. So this has really become a big deal in the last couple. You met Robin Roberts. You've been on television. What has it meant to you as someone now 15 years out that you're helping someone just like you to know that they're not alone and that it's okay and there's a community and that the internet didn't exist when you and I were sick, but now it is enabling us to be who we need to be for others?
It's been tremendously meaningful. I honestly don't even really have words to say how it feels to have, you know, to have had these received this way, and to know that, you know, here we've had thousands of emails of personal stories of people saying how this affected them, or someone gave me this, or I gave this to my friend, and it's been just really incredible, and really sort of caused me to rethink what's possible in terms of, you know, in terms of how I'm looking at my own personal experience in my life, and some of the things I've been through. And
so the website is EmilyMcDowell.com. The hashtag is empathy cards. right? And I checked, like, you're getting a ton of attention to the hashtag empathy cards. Nothing sums up what you're doing here. Again, this is so not about cancer specifically, but it applies to people who resonate with these messages. And it's as simple as this card just says here, there is no good card for this. I'm so sorry. And that's sometimes all you need to say when you don't know what to say.
Right.
So you've done good.
Thank
This is
you.
incredible stuff. What's the future like? Tell us can you share with us some plans?
Sure. Well, there'll be more empathy cards. We release cards twice a year in January and May, so there'll be another round.
Do you write them? Do you have a team of writers?
I write them.
Okay.
I write and illustrate everything we do currently.
Oh, so you're talented too.
So, so there'll be more cards in January, and then I'm working actually with with an amazing woman named Kelsey Crow, who runs an organization in the Bay Area called Help Each Other Out, which does empathy boot camps, sort of empathy workshops, various organizations around schools, hospitals, business places. And she and I are working on a empathy book, which is basically the book version. It takes sort of the idea behind these cards of what to say when you don't know what to say. And we're creating an illustrated, fun. I mean, as much fun as you can make this topic. It sort of how-to handbook for what to do and say.
Right.
When someone you love is going through a tough time.
It's incredible, really incredible.
Well, thank you.
I hope you're proud of yourself.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we can be our own worst enemies and our own worst critics, but this is a culture shift, and I wouldn't just say that. It's a really big deal. So congratulations on 15 years.
Thank you.
You're back in the Bay Area?
No, I'm in Los Angeles actually.
Oh, you're in LA. Even better. Well, we're having that big conference coming up, and we'd love to have you there.
Yeah,
which would be a really big deal. And I know that we are actively promoting this. These are the things to do when you don't know what to do. Empathy cards, hashtag empathy cards, EmilyMcDowell.com. 15-year Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor. Congratulations. Emily McDowell, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
This was epic. All right. And now it's time for our closing sequence.
Prepare to activate.
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
You ever seen a grown man naked?
And so, to all of you, a fond farewell.
Hooray! I'm helping.
You are a meathead. Oh, Magoo, you've done it again.
That was so terrible, I think you gave me cancer.
Okay, folks, that's our show. The 359th episode of The Stupid Cancer Show. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud.
Broadcasting since 2007, The Stupid Cancer Show is a production of Stupid Cancer, the largest charity comprehensively addressing young adult cancer online at stupidcancer.org. Coming to you from the chemo deck. And on behalf of my team here at The Stupid Cancer Show, we hope you had as much fun as we did poking a stick at Stupid Cancer. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next on the exciting episodes of The Stupid Cancer Show.